Hi everyone, this video is designed to orient you to the theory paper, but just remember there's full guidelines and a very detailed rubric posted on Canvas. Okay, so I know this is a heavy way to start, but I want you to really avoid plagiarism. And so you can't use AI when doing this assignment because I just find that once students are using AI, they tend to pull too much from it. And then basically the general rule is if you shouldn't be taking 4 or more consecutive words from another source without putting it in quotation marks and citing it. So this really means you shouldn't be taking words or ideas, directly from the sample paper or another student's paper. Really, if you're using anything as to, get your ideas going, you don't want to be looking at it while you're writing your paper. Okay, so the theory paper consists of 4 to 5 pages, not including a cover page and reference list. It is in APA format and is going to also include 1-inch margins, 12-point Times New Roman font, double spacing, and it's going to be frequently and well-cited. So what does that mean? That doesn't mean that you need to cite every sentence, but it does mean that each paragraph is going to probably have at least one citation, more if you're using multiple sources. So there's a number of resources posted on Canvas, and I know you'll check these out. Again, there's the guidelines document. There's a library handout, which gives very detailed search terms for finding each of the articles for each of the 5 theories. And in fact, when students come to office hours for help with finding an article, I pull up the library handout and use those search terms. So I'd suggest you do as well. There's a sample paper. There's the APA PowerPoint, and just a friendly reminder that all students have access to Microsoft Word, not just 365, but you can actually download it to your PC. Okay, so the theory paper assignment is organized into 3 separate assignments. So the first one is the theory article check-in, which happens early on, and in this you submit the article as a PDF file. And if it doesn't meet requirements, then you resubmit the article back into this Dropbox so that we can approve it. It doesn't change your original grade, but it does give you kind of the green light to go ahead and work on your outline. The second part is the theory outline. And that is a very detailed outline, so don't underestimate that. It requires that you give information on all of the components of the theory paper. The rubric is extensively long, so that's the bad news. The good news is it will make it very easy for you to write your theory paper, and we can give you feedback on whether or not you're on track and really help you maximize your points on the theory paper. And then you have the final theory paper. You can see that all of these are due in the first half of the semester, which is bad news in some ways, but in good news in being able to get it over with. Okay, so it's tricky to find a theory article, and so again, I really suggest that you look at the library handout. You're going to choose an article that uses one of the 5 family theories that we're covering in this class, and those are listed here. So just to reiterate, you're not going and finding an article on a topic that you're interested in and applying one of these theories. You're finding an article where the authors say, according to social exchange theory, blah, 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 or this study is guided by a family systems theory perspective. So the authors say that they're using the theory. It will be easier for you the more explicitly they use the theory. So I'd spend some time, a couple of hours, finding a really good article. Just some notes here. If you're using family systems theory, we're not going to include Bronfenbrenner in this class, although that's sometimes included in family systems theory. So make sure that you search for not Bronfenbrenner in your library search. And the handout talks about how to put a not search term in. In addition, with family stress theory, we are not using a Conger's family stress model. We cover that very briefly in this class, but not enough to have it be the focus of the theory paper. So it's confusing that there's 2 theories, one called family stress theory and one called family stress model. You'll occasionally find an article that's using both, which is fine, but you can't just only use an article that says it's using Conger et al.'s family stress model. So you can search for not Conger. Okay, or as you can see there, family development. Sometimes it's easier to just search for life course perspective, which is the newest iteration, social exchange theory, or you could search for either feminist theory or gender theory. So some more details about the theory article requirements, which again are tricky. The next requirement is that it has to be empirical. This means that the article is written from original data analysis. It can be qualitative, which is like interviews, or quantitative, which is numbers. Basically, you're looking for an article that says this study, we studied this number of people, it lists an N or a sample size, it has sections like methods, results, and discussion. We don't want you, however, to use two forms of an empirical article called a meta-analysis or a case study. They're going to come up in PsycInfo as empirical, but they're not great to use for this assignment. So no meta-analyses, no case studies, so look carefully on that. And again, you want to avoid literature reviews or theoretical papers which are not empirical. We do want you to use an article from a peer-reviewed journal. We encourage you to find it in PsycInfo, but you can find it other ways too. And so that means no articles from newspapers or magazines and no dissertations. Does need to be published within the last 10 years. We give a 1-year grace on that in the rubric, and it needs to be related to our field. So about couples, parents, siblings, children. It can be about individuals as long as it seems related to family studies and maybe something that we would talk about in an HDFS course. So some of our theories like social exchange theory and feminist and gender theory are applied outside of our field, and so you just want to check and make sure it seems relevant. If there's any questions, just send your article to us for review or come up after class for feedback. Okay, so there's 5 sections of the theory paper, and what you'll notice in the outline rubric and the final paper rubric is these are very similar in terms of points. And so what often happens is students get the most points on the first 3 sections and the least points on the last 2 sections, partly because the last 2 sections are harder, and we're going to talk about those on the next slide, and partly because they run out of steam. So try to avoid that. So the very first section is the overview of the study. And for this, you really don't have to worry about the theory. You can simply write a summary of the study, just like you maybe have in other HDFS classes, where you talk about what the hypotheses in the study were, who they studied, the demographics of the people they studied, what types of measures they used, or what the research design was, what results they found, and the implications. In the second section, the overview of family theory, you really don't have to worry about your article. You just have to focus on explaining to us the family theory. And you do that using both the textbook and the lecture are both required. So we do have a certain number of concepts that you have to address, but you don't have to address everything that's talked about in the textbook or the article, but you do want to give a sense that you understand the theory and you can explain it to your reader. In the third section, the use of the theory in the study, now you go back and you look at the article from the wearing your theoretical kind of glasses, right? To look for how they used the theory. I suggest just highlighting in your article anytime the theory seems to come up, where they describe it, where they use any concepts from the theory, where they discuss it, where they talk about it in terms of their measures. And all you do here is summarize that, describe how they used the theory. And sometimes you're having to do some guessing, like sometimes they're being really explicit and sometimes they're being implicit, and you have to say they're using this term which is related to this concept in the theory. And here you're going to be citing your article and possibly the textbook and lecture. So then the critical evaluation section throws students off because they're wondering, how's that different from use of the theory in the study? Now what you're doing is putting on your critical thinking cap and saying, okay, based on how I understand the theory and how I describe the theory in section 2, where are they really strong in using the theory, and what are they missing? Maybe I understand some aspects of the theory that I think they could have used better. So we're asking you to evaluate how well they used the theory in the literature review methods and discussion, to kind of give us your critical assessment and to make some suggestions as to how they could have used the theory even better. Again, you're going to be citing the article and likely either the textbook or the lecture. Finally, our 5th section is called the application of other family theory. We used to call this future directions, and you might find a ghost of that somewhere, but it threw students off, that title, so we've changed it to application of other family theory. So you're going to pick one of the other 5 family theories that we study in the class that we've talked about previously in this PowerPoint. You're going to briefly explain it, so kind of a mini section 2, and then you're going to say, if I was applying this theory to this same research study in my article, what would they hypothesize about the issue, or how would this theory explain the findings? So this is just helping us kind of understand that when you switch the theoretical lens for which you're understanding a problem, you see it in a different way. We do ask you to identify some specific theoretical concepts, and again, cite both the textbook and the lecture. All right, so here's the grading breakdown. You can see we have a small amount of points for the theory check-in, a little bit more for the theory outline, and then quite a bit for the theory paper. And again, our goal with the theory outline is to give you feedback so that you can really maximize your points on the theory paper. All right, that brings us to the end of this overview. I'd be really happy to help you during office hours. I promise if you show up, either for help finding an article or for figuring out what to put in each of these 5 sections, or interpreting the feedback that you received on your outline, I promise I can help you raise your score, and I won't judge you for how little you've done or things that you don't understand. So would love to see you please sign up.